Here we are at the Eagle's Eye. This port has the potential of occupying much of your time because it covers topics in the philosophical and spiritual realm. Since most of us have been programmed to leave those sort of things to, monks and whatnot, we've decided to give you a little more extensive menu than we'll provide in the other Port of Call's introductory surveys. But not too long. We know it takes time for this kind of thinking. Ready? Let's get an eagle's eye perspective of the whole scenario of the circle. In other words, let's visit the Philosophical Vision Center. Let's soar to new spiritual heights and look at things from the Creator's perspective. It is here that we'll have the opportunity to check out the story in the stars and discover what His plan for the reconciliation of His creation is truly all about. From this vantage point, you'll get a totally new perspective of what heaven and hell are, who will inhabit them, and for how long. Christians are in for quite a surprise, but then you'll at least have been introduced to what they can't see because their power bases have modified the scriptures that they encourage the average believer to read. But they forgot about the story in the stars. Well, not actually forgot. They just allowed the horoscope group to pervert the story such that many needy or curious people go there for personal advice, scaring most Christians away. Of ironic interest, perhaps, is the fact that it was the Knights Templar who introduced the tarot card reading to the fortune-telling scenario. Go figure. However, the Creator's message to mankind, forever visible and audible in the stars, called the Mazzaroth, gives a whole new perspective. Instead of personal fortune-telling, it is in reality the history of the reconciliation of all of creation. Again, let us suggest an itinerary so that your stay here can be most profitable. Treat each pamphlet as an informational building block, each one's significance being foundational to the one which follows it. The first one, Am Hashem, Hebrew for people of the name, introduces you to precepts one should use to evaluate the religious or secular spiritual force fields promoting their worldview. Yes, Grasshopper, you will find that everything, be it religious or secular, is much more spiritual than you once imagined. And for that reason, one should be able to discern which spiritual camp they have encountered. Strange as it may be, the two competing camps regarding the existence of a creator do seem to agree on one criteria. They don't want you to know his name, or at the very least, what the significance of his name means for you. From the vantage point of knowledge concerning Creator's name, you'll be prepared to evaluate a beginning-to-end survey of Earth's history, introducing an understanding of why the Creator Yahweh allows the competing choices of paths to follow, be they secular or religious. It helps one understand how to identify the counterfeits to the Creator's agenda, and has suggestions on how to free oneself from their ensnarement. The pamphlet's titled appropriately enough, Circle of the Creator. Then we'd like you to visit our first real adventure into the Mazzaroth, or the Creator's story in the stars. We've entitled this Arcturus, Grand Shepherd of the Hills. This exciting story in the stars refutes Christianity's theologies of shame, be they eternal tormentist, annihilationist, or universal salvationist. It thoughtfully describes Creator's fail-safe strategy to bring all of his creation back to himself in one of two ways. We call it the theology of justice. After having been introduced to the theologies of shame, one might wonder why and how these theologies were allowed to permeate the religious community. That debacle of a story is surveyed in another Mazzaroth scenario we've called Serpent Holder, Tragic Mystery of Christianity. It is here you'll discover who Jesus Christ, be he Mormon or Christian, truly is. This will perhaps be such an unsettling discovery that you will most surely need the next story of the stars that we suggest in the initial visit to the Eagle Eye Port of Call. We've called it Orion's Belt, and it can't help but bring to mind the events of another great cruise, the Titanic. History reveals that warnings of abnormal iceberg flows were sent to the captain through intermediaries, warnings which were missed or ignored because of personal matters or plausibility factors relating to the intermediary's discretion. By the time the relevance of the warnings were finally discerned, the captain's ability to avoid disaster, nor the ship's inadequately prepared lifeboat reserves could avail much to the helpless passengers. Orion's Belt allows all those who find themselves sailing on the good ship U.S. American Dream to receive advice, warning, and lifeboat instructions from the Creator himself. What's more, you don't need permission from the captain of that doomed cruise to board the lifeboat as suggested. The message is dire, yet full of hope. The hope is not some escapist scenario such as the left-behind scare tactics of Christian rapture theologians. It is an exciting, under-the-radar strategy for survival in the rough seas ahead. The next two pamphlets explore spirit world's involvement in Earth's affairs and attempts to give a logical scenario which may explain why there are extra scriptural literature which seems to conflict with the stories as reported in Genesis, and why the Book of Enoch lost its status in the New Testament era. They are entitled Behind Lucifer's Mask and the Elohim Said. We've given you a lot to read, a lot to chew on, and maybe an awfully lot to swallow. But if you don't choke on it and you're interested in staying under the radar, you'll need to go green. So when you're ready, our next visit will be to the lifeboats in green fields forever.